Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 12th CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talks. Our guest today is Mr. Kurt Warren, Global Procurement and Supply Chain Senior Executive from Ringwood, England, United Kingdom. Welcome to the CIPS MENA Procurement Talks, Mr. Kurt.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the kind invite, Lalit.
Welcome. Audience, as you know, CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talk series covers in-depth interviews with procurement and supply chain professionals from various diverse industries and across the world. The experiences shared enhance our knowledge about procurement and supply. And of course, we come to know after hearing the stories about highs and lows in the lives of procurement masters, we can use the lessons to become more relevant to our organizations as well as more agile to face the market dynamics and challenges. I'm your host, Lalit Dhamija. I have 40 years interaction with the procurement and supply chain world. And after 37 years of my corporate career with Engineers India Limited and ADNOC, now I'm a full-time global procurement and supply chain trainer. So our guest today for CIPS MENA Procurement Master Talk Show is Mr. Kurt Warren. Kurt is globally experienced senior procurement and supply chain executive with recognized expertise in designing and implementing innovative strategies which enhance the commercial process, facilitate business transformation, and improve operations management. A proven subject matter expert on procurement, commercial law, logistics, supply chain ethics, US export control and risk management. Kurt is a regular lecturer and advisor for industry associations and keynote speaker at leading industry events as an expert in business process reengineering, and he has proven record for developing and embedding cost-efficient measures. An internationally recognized CIPS trainer and chief moderator, Kurt works across a broad client base from public to private sectors, delivering at all levels of CIPS training and bespoke programs. Kurt established the Fellows Give Back program, where Fellow of Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply of the profession give up their time to pass on experiences and knowledge. Kurt is honored and awarded the title of Mentor of Mentors by the CIPS MENA community. Welcome once again, Mr. Kurt Warren, to the CIPS podcast show.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. You make me feel very old now.
No, Kurt, we love you in CIPS MENA community, those who know you. And our audience they are really looking forward to know more about you, various aspects of your professional life and anything, your hobbies and your personal aspects, what you would like to share with us. So to start with, Kurt, how did you get into procurement and supply chain world?
Well, my father was the senior director for Ferry Masters, so very much into logistics and transportation. Mm-hmm. And a very young man, he went to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where he set up the logistics and supply network. I didn't go directly into supply chain and procurement. I started my career as a soldier. I joined the parachute regiment, where I was an infantry soldier, and it's called the Special Forces Group now. And from there, what I did is I realized that there's not much career of dressing like a tree and jumping out of airplanes. I need to have a career. So I transferred to what was known as the Royal Army Ordnance Corps. the Royal Army Ordnance Corps is the logistics and supply chain arm of the British Army. With basically with a broom in my hand in a warehouse and everything else, and I did supply chain specialist up to level 1, which is all about logistics and inventory management and materials. And then I moved then to supply controller, which is all to do with the procurement and forecasting, demand management, and negotiation and everything else. I was a warrant officer, so in the British Army, and I moved then to the School of Ordnance, where I taught young soldiers and officers about supply chain and procurement. So I worked then as a trainer within the School of Ordnance. Okay. And that's really how it happened, of how I actually really got involved in procurement and supply chain. So it started way back when I started off dressing as a tree, to moving into the civilian world of the military. So my team was made up of 100 soldiers and maybe 300 or 400 civilians. Wow. In the different depots that I was based in.
All right. So, Mr. Kurt, how has been your journey so far, and any particular aspects you want to share with our audience?
I've been very fortunate in my career because I've worked across the world, and I've worked for some of the with regarding to supply chain and procurement. So I've worked in fast-moving consumer goods. I've worked in automotive, tier 1 and tier 2. I've worked in engineering, in research. I know I've been very fortunate to work in higher education. So I've had a great career, and the great thing about procurement and supply chain, it doesn't matter where you are in the world and the team that you work for, multicultural and everything else, it's the same problems. And so I'm very blessed that I've had a great career. I'm very blessed that I've worked across the world, and even more of working in a multicultural environment.
Very rich profile and very inspiring. And Kurt, do you want to share any hobbies or any other aspects of your personality with us?
Yeah, well, I have. Yes, of course. Now, some of my closest friends in MENA have a nickname for me.
I know. Can I say that?
Of course you can.
Yeah, we in the close circles, many people don't know, but in the close circles, we call Kurt as Wood Butcher, and he will explain why we call him that. Yes, sir.
Okay, so one of my hobbies is woodworking, and I like to make furniture and different bits and pieces and everything else. I call it fine woodworking. My wife calls it a mix between IKEA and wood butchery. So therefore, I chose the name of being called the Wood Butcher, and some of my stuff is there. So I like doing that. I like DIY, and I like using my hands and everything else. Also travel. I've been blessed. Me and my wife have traveled to over 57 countries and been to some amazing places and seen some amazing cultures. Wow. And then the other side is diving. I've dived, the place where every wreck diver in the world wants to go, and that's a place called Chuk Lagoon, where the Japanese fleet was sunk and everything else. So I've dived all of that sort of thing. So I'm very much into adventure, being outside, but I do like the wood butchery side, as my loving wife calls it, and using my hands and everything else.
Very exciting and very diverse type of activities, indeed. And Kurt, what are your activities as Global Procurement and Supply Chain Senior Executive?
Well, because like you, Lalit, we've been doing this a long time now. How I see myself now really is an ambassador for our profession, procurement and supply chain. I really enjoy being a mentor and helping new talent come on. Same as you, I do a lot of training and development, but I also work in consultancy and helping organizations redefine their procurement and supply chain and try and bring it from transactional into more of a strategic role, and explaining to organizations the benefits of having procurement and supply chain, on the great things that procurement supply chain can bring to an organization, because we have the biggest impact on the P&L. That's proven. So that's where I see really is I'm more of an ambassador, and I was privileged to be the chairman of the fellows in the Middle East and support Sam and the MENA team and everything else in promoting in that area. And you guys in MENA now have taken on the Fellows Give Back program, and I see lots of activity happening there, and that's fantastic. So that's how I see myself.
Yes, that is how you started, and you have really helped so many people, professionals, including me, from time to time. And Kurt, normally there's one standard question we ask our guests, that is how your colleagues describe you in 3 words. I did not purposely ask you that, and I thought I will try to share what I know about your personality and what our community knows about you.
Okay.
So, so Kurt, you are seen as a very helpful person. You have helped so many people. You have encouraged and mentored so many people at times. So whenever I needed your support or any guidance or advice personally, you were always there for me. Yeah, even if you are busy, you will give time. If you want to meet out in the coffee place, I want to come to New York, University of Abu Dhabi, or some other location, you will always be there for me. And I want some resources, you will provide them. You will guide them. And like you said, you introduce fellows feed that payback program, and you encourage community, which is going on till now, and it will go on and on. People are encouraged, you set up the framework, and you can be assertive at times, that is also required. So this is what I've seen about you, and you're a very likable person, and of course quite knowledgeable, and helping the community by sharing your knowledge. So
Well, that's
Mr.
extremely.
Kurt,
That's very kind.
coming to the next one, I know you will like contract management laws and contract law. How do you feel how much procurement professionals should know about contract management and contract law?
Well, I think this is now one of the fundamentals and the requirements for all levels within procurement and supply chain. More and more now, we're using external parties and we're outsourcing different elements. And we've been very reliant in the past with regarding to our legal business partners, and just taking their advice and turning them and using their experience. But now, understanding the implied terms, the express terms, and also understanding the culture as well as the international shipping laws, it's so important, because we're moved away from transactional procurement to tactical procurement. We're very much now strategic. We're seen as an internal business partner. And the fundamentals of everything we do now in supply chain is around contracts and contract law and contract administration. So I think there has to be a real emphasis on more education on contracts, more education on how to draft contracts, the risks in contracts. So I think after COVID, and hopefully this will go away soon, but I think with the digitalization program that's happening, contracts are even going to come to the forefront even more. So I believe that the future for the young procurement and supply chain people, is to ship with our legal partners. And I would not be surprised if there would not be the contract managers will have a dotted line to the legal team and more integration with legal. But definitely, I think the future for procurement and supply is more involvement in contracts, understanding contract law, understanding how to administer contracts. But I definitely believe with the digitalization program, we're going to be heavily involved.
Right. I think you have partly answered my future questions, what I had in mind about
Okay.
digitalization and about, okay, so about the current situation, how the current situation is changing your thinking towards your approach towards procurement and supply chain training. And what is your opinion, in your opinion, will be the impact of online procurement trainings?
Well, that's a fantastic question. So I'll take the first part first.
Mhm.
Um, First and foremost, I think it has to be recognised that that Sam and the other fellows within MENA are actually leading the way with regarding to embracing learning and also bringing the community together. I mean,
Mhm.
you see, all the great stuff that the podcast that you're doing, the webinars that Sam's doing, the stuff that Harry's doing, and also the Dubai and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and all the other areas are doing great training, which is fantastic. And I think training should be seen as a community activity, which is MENA is definitely leading the world with regarding to that. But
Mm.
with regarding to training, there's been a huge revamp of the CIPS training.
Yeah.
And it really started way back with David Noble kicking the can and saying we need to think a bit more about supply chain. And Malcolm has taken that, Malcolm Harrison, the new CEO,
Yeah.
and he's listened to the voice of the regional areas. And I know Sam has been banging the tin very heavily for MENA and done a fantastic job with regarding to that. And you can see the whole training and the syllabus for the diploma and the advanced diploma, and also the skills training courses
Yeah.
are all changed and meeting the requirements and the needs of the new business. So that's fantastic. Your second part of the question with regarding to the digitalization and teaching on learn and CIPS is does that now, and we teach across the world at different time zones and use different platforms, and we're moving into one platform globally,
Mhm.
which will be the Adobe Connect platform.
Yeah.
Again, it's great. It's a good medium to actually go through. The great thing about it is, for those countries that allow it and people that want it under the GDPR regulations,
Yeah.
is it's recorded. So the student has chance to actually go back and say, I'm not really sure what Lalit said about this or what Kurt said about that or one of the other trainers. So they can actually go back and replay the actual course.
Yes.
And we've got that constantly. So I think that's a tremendous advantage for students now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think realistically, we're never going to go back to 100% teaching face to face.
Mhm.
We are going to have a mixed medium of online training and also face to face. I am old school. I like the face to face. I like the interaction in the
Yeah.
classroom. I mean, some people on this podcast or listening to this podcast have seen me on the stage where I'm leaping around all over the place
Mhm.
and very interactive.
Yeah.
That's my personality. So I love that, but I definitely believe we're never going to go back to 100% teaching face to face.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mix between the two,
Yeah.
and I think the future is really great. But like I said, MENA has definitely, under the leadership of Sam and also with the fellas and everything else, is
Yeah.
leading the way with regarding to interaction training.
Right. Thank you, Kurt. And beyond this pandemic, what are the key trends companies will need to consider? How do you think we will need to kickstart procurement and supply chain once things begin to recover?
What a great question, and a terrible thing with regarding to this pandemic.
Mhm.
David Noble really started this off with we called the supply chain century,
Mhm.
and Malcolm as well. And it's very interesting that David Noble and Malcolm, really their background is supply chain. So
Yeah.
I think the S in SIPS is going to become a lot bigger. I think because of all the issues we've had in supply chain and getting products, and if we just think about the basic one of PPE, there's going to be a real heavy focus now on supply chain, managing the supply chain. So companies are going to start realizing the value of procurement and supply chain with regarding to making sure that we have robust visibility and supply with regard to the supply chain. So I think what's happened. We had the crash about 15, 20 years ago, and people realized how important procurement was, and the CPO entered the boardroom. I think because of all the issues, and the news readers and governments are all talking about supply chain, I think there's going to be an emergence with regarding to the chief supply chain officers appearing within the boardrooms.
Yeah.
There'd be more focus on supply chain and everything else. So I think COVID is the realization. Who would have thought that news readers would be talking about supply chain?
Yeah.
Incredible. So that's why I think so. I think supply chain is going to start emerging more. And then the procurement side with the contracts and everything else and supplier relationship management. But I think supply chain is starting to rise. And if we look at, I know our great friend Lalit in Abu Dhabi, when he changed his whole dynamic of his organization and his supply chain, because he understands the importance with regarding to managing the supply chain and the risks.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well said. It is not only media personalities, but all these politicians, leaders. And now, when you see the TV news, I don't know, so many times supply chain is mentioned because of this situation. So people have understood the importance of supply chain. And Kurt, what do you think would be the future challenges for procurement professionals?
I think the future challenges for our procurement professions is whether they have the skills to actually use digitalization, and whether they have the skills to really understand what supply chain is. So there has to be a lot of personal development by themselves, and there has to be development by the organization.
Yeah.
The other challenge is actually being able to use the system correctly.
Right.
So I think the advice I'd give really is that they really have to look inside and say, do I have the skills to do this? What's my fit gap analysis of what I'm doing at the moment versus what I need for the future?
Yeah.
And then make sure that they do their personal development and also development through the CIPS MENA region to ensure that they have that skill set.
Okay, you have partly answered my next question also. So these
Sorry
were about the challenges. And so this is the last question, Mr. Kurt. And what will be your message to the procurement professionals?
Well, the key thing about, so what I would say with the procurement professionals is we are moving into the digitalization. You know, if we look with regarding to a report by the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transportation, is that 70% of companies aren't ready for it. If you read in the CPO magazine, Waleed's message or on the 8th of April, where he put there with regarding to digitalization, and then there's some great books of Dr. Zala on in the CIPS side, and it's all about getting ready for digitalization and being ready for the digitalization. One of the key things about the digitalization is, you know, is the system ready? And one of the issues that they're saying at the moment is that basically, you know, 40% of the companies are turning around saying, well, the problem is we don't have the money. Well, you have the system, but you need to make sure the system is clean, and digitalization relies on the master data. And I'm sure many of the audience listening to this will, you know, remember me keep saying master data. You know, you need to make sure your master data is there.
Yeah.
You need to be ready. And there's a couple of books that I would recommend. I would recommend Disruptive Procurement. It's a really good book. It's by Kearney. So if you want to read that, so if you put Disruptive Procurement, it's all about digitalization within procurement.
Okay.
The other thing is, you know, and we keep talking about this, and CIPS MENA offer a great program, and I know you teach it, and it's called Risks in with the Supply Chain, is that you have to know your supply chain. You have to know tier 1 all the way down to the different tiers within your supply chain, and you have to have a supply chain heat map. And identify the risks within the supply chain, play the supply chain game, break it, you know, put in the red flag and say, okay, that element's break, how are we going to fix it? A lot of procurement and supply chain people caught a cold because, you know, it's great when everything's really working and we can get product and everything's wonderful. And then what happened is the COVID came in and it completely disrupted the world.
Yeah.
Not just the UE, the complete world. And the whole focus then turned on procurement and supply chain and said, okay, fix it. And we didn't have solutions. We had single suppliers. We had suppliers. We were buying items that could be manufactured or purchased locally, but we were buying them from Asia and everything else. So I think there's going to be a whole, where are our suppliers? Where is our risk? And the thing is, you have to be strategic. You have to think, what are the risks in my category, in my contracts, in my supply chain, and how am I going to mitigate those risks? So get away from being transactional, start thinking about the what ifs. And again, if, you know, CIPS MENA run a fantastic course, which is risks in the supply chain. And also there's some fantastic information on the CIPS Knowledge website, which you can go to about managing the risk and that sort of thing. But reach out to the CIPS MENA office if you want some training and development on supply chain. But I definitely believe that's where the young professionals need to start looking at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kurt. You provided very meaningful insights and about the procurement body of knowledge from your perspective. And we have seen these trends from time to time, how CPO wanted a share in the boardroom. They wanted a seat in the boardroom. And now how companies are understanding the value of procurement and supply chain. So this is no longer a service department, but at the center of the organization, because we deal with so many stakeholders, we know the issues, we know how to create value for procurement and supply, how to be a strategic partner, and procurement professionals have a lot of responsibility. And as you said, they can gain a lot of knowledge through knowledge sharing for being associated with Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, who are updating their knowledge base on a daily basis. And also the community procurement professionals get time and a chance to interact through webinars, and they can participate in various events. And even people who are professionals, who are already experienced, who are fellows. We have got a fellows payback program, like which was initiated by you in the CIPS MENA. They can, of course, pay back to the community. And it is a wonderful profession, I believe. Lot of potential, a lot of things to learn, lot of things to share, and to contribute to organizations' bottom line. I once again thank you very much, Mr. Kurt Warren, for joining us and for taking out time from your busy schedule for these procurement talks.
Thank you very much for the privilege of being able to talk to you. I hope to come and see you all again soon. Please stay safe, and remember, you're in a fantastic profession and it's really rewarding. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Audience, thank you for tuning in for this Master Procurement Talk series. And this was the 12th podcast in the series. You can access to all the recorded postcards on CIPS MENA Facebook page. And also now all these podcasts are available in the CIPS website, www.cips.org. CIPS MENA webinars. So you can have access to all the recorded podcasts there. Thank you for your support and encouragement for these talks.